Hey, what's up, everybody? We're back with episode 5 of Rings of Power. All right, we're really getting into it now. I'm not going to say we're getting into the good stuff, but we're past the halfway mark now. And just before I get into this episode, I just got to say, this one's it's an hour. I'm not going to be binging up like before. I'm going to just try to keep going with this weekly, but the hour, it felt pretty long. You know, it's weird when I'm watching this show. All I can think of, it never feels like Lord of the Rings. My earliest memories of Lord of the Rings, I read those books in high school, but I actually went to the theater and saw the Fellowship of the Ring with a bunch of people who had never read the books. So yeah, because I knew the ending, I kind of knew the story wasn't going to finish, so I didn't know how everyone else was going to react, and I gotta tell you, at that time, I was surprised. I thought there'd be some anger, but no anger. I was like, does it just end there? Where do they go from there? Like, what happens? Is there more? And I was like, oh, all right. So it was a fun car ride back. Kind of spoilering the other movies that were going to be coming out later. But I told them to read the books and stuff. But it just created an interesting conversation. It generated interest in Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. Like I said, in reading just the whole world, right? And I just don't feel like Rings of Power is doing that. It's not generating interest in the land of Middle Earth or Tolkien. It just seems to be not even generating interest in itself. And this episode here, I thought it was getting better with episode 4, but I think we really regress here. So let's get into the episode. I'm not going to go too deep, but I am going to be, of course, going over pretty much what happens, but that ain't much. So starting off with the dwarves, again, I don't mind the dwarves. I think Durin and his son are portrayed pretty well here. This one starts off young Durin back in the mines, chipping away, and his dad comes in. He's now wearing the Ring of Power, and they don't have sunlight because the sun shafts are gone, and Disa can't sing them back. So he's like telling him to dig at certain parts, and his son's like, young Durin's like, that's a foundation wall. We can't dig there, Dad. And he's like, you'll do what you're told, but he doesn't dig. But then old Durin does, and the dig looks terrible. I've swung a pickaxe before. He's like, going like these little half-effort things. It wouldn't break any stone, but they are dwarves. Either way, it ends up that where he's, they say don't dig there, it's a foundation wall, but it ends up he's right. He digs through there, and the sun comes through. Then he goes around, and the ring commands him a few more times, and he keeps digging out sun shafts. And he says, we don't have to live like them on the surface, waiting every day for the sun to come. We bring the sun to us. And you see Khazad-dûm gets all lit up with the sun. So even though Disa and the Stone Singers couldn't do it, the king has now done it with the ring. Kind of makes young Durin not trust the ring the way that old Durin's acting when he's got it on. We also find out that the dwarves are building Durin's door in the Eregion with the elves. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I have no idea, but they just show the door that you would know from the movie. Speak friend and enter. They even kind of talk about how they're naming it that. I don't know if that's accurate or not, whatever. It was just another boring moment. But then we finally get back to the dwarves, and something really bad happens here. This is the kind of thing that is not good. At the market, it's like a packed market. Disa and Durin are there, and they're shopping, and she's buying a tuning stone, and she's trying to work out a deal with this guy. She makes a deal. She drops the stone. It's like a little ball. It sort of rolls off the path at the market. She follows it, then it just cuts to a scene where she's got like a lantern. She's in like the dark finding this underground lake that no one's seen. She has to sing to the stone to get the water to come off it. And as she's leaving, there's like a roar. Sounds like the Balrog is waking up. Like, what? What? In a passage 3 feet off like their busy market? There's some undiscovered tunnel with a hidden monster down below it and a lake and everything? It's bad. It's just bad. I like Disa, but this isn't great. It's a bad scene. And then you also find out that Durin's dad, they've all, the 7 rings for the dwarves are made. So they all have these people come as representatives, and he won't give them the rings. He says, you have to send your lords to get the rings themselves, so that the 7 dwarf lords are going to get their rings. And again, Durin doesn't trust it. Brings it up to Celebrimbor, saying I don't know about these rings. They seem kind of evil. Did you do something different? Was there any kind of change? Which makes Celebrimbor think about it. And Durin even mentions, what about that Annatar guy? He seems kind of, fishy. What's he doing here? But he doesn't really, break through or anything like that. And after that, he just pretty much goes back and tells his dad, tries to talk to him like, hey, I think the ring is going to be evil. His dad just restores his name, gives him his princely title back, and then he goes back and tells Disa that. She's obviously disappointed because she knows something's up, but she's not sure if using the ring is the right way to get the stone shafts back, but whatever. The sun shafts got to come back, so they're back. So, yeah, I don't really know where this is all going to play out to, but that's pretty much where that ends off, and we're going to see if we get those Dwarf Lords in later on. Then, in the old elf side of things, we're mostly in Eregion. We get a little bit of Gil-galad back at the, I think they're in Lothlorien, but they're at a different place. But you get a little bit of that, but mostly we're in Eregion with Celebrimbor and Annatar. And, of course, Annatar now wants to make rings for the humans. 9 rings for the race of Min. He's saying, like, we need to do, like 3 by 3 by 3, just like the first 3 for perfection. I don't know what the heck they're talking about here. Like, they're making the rings in the order of the poem, not in the order that they're actually made in the book. So it's creating a weird dynamic. But anyway, the Annatar is trying to convince him, like, let's make them for the 9 rings for the humans. But Celebrimbor thinks that they'll be corrupted, smart, so he doesn't want to make them. So Annatar's like, I'll just make them myself. So he goes off to make them himself. Then there's the Lady Blacksmith Apprentice. She has a vision of like a fiery eye or something like that she sees seems evil. And then Sauron's like, oh, you weren't supposed to see that yet. I didn't want you guys to know about any of that, but that's okay. And it's like, he's so clearly evil. And then Celebrimbor, who's not going to get involved in making these rings, comes down, and there's like a little floating hammer, and he's like, oh, what are you guys doing? And he's saying, oh, we're just trying to get the rings going, but things aren't going good. The spell got cast on that. Celebrimbor, of course, catches the hammer, and he's trying to figure out why, because Durin has told him that he thinks these rings for the dwarves are bad. He's like, why would they be bad? We use the same process, all the same materials. He's like, was there something different in our heart? And he goes to Sauron, like, did you do anything different? And he just looks at him like, no, of course not. But maybe you did. And then he turns it around on Celebrimbor, like, because of the deceit you didn't tell Gil-galad, that must be what's going on. We'll have to go tell them what's really happening. And Celebrimbor's like, no, we're not going to be doing that, because then he won't let me make anything else. I guess we'll have to just make these 9 rings, and have these new 9 rings somehow redeem the 7 rings. What? I don't know. So I guess he's now going to join them. And now he's going to make the 9 rings with them, which will somehow also need the power to redeem the other 7, which he now thinks are corrupted. Okay. Gil-galad finds out back at Elf headquarters, Gil-galad finds out that, oh, the orcs are coming and they're going to actually be attacking, I think Eregion, and they need help. But nah, he doesn't want to help because he thinks Sauron's coming. He doesn't want to split the army or something. I don't know. It's like the whole Gondor calls for aid. Will Rohan answer? Gil-galad not answering. He's not coming. So he says he's just going to pretty much leave him to it. And then we get a little scene with Galadriel. She got taken prisoner last episode. You kind of see her get wheeled in a prisoner cart. They let her out of the prisoner cart. She's not chained or anything. She kind of gets off. All the orcs sort of back off. But one big orc approaches her. But Adar stops him. Then she takes Adar prisoner. Like she's going to kill him or something. And he's like, you're not here as a prisoner. I brought you here to be perhaps an ally. And then she lets him go. And I'm like, what is she going to join? Is Galadriel going to join the orcs now? And Elrond is, like I said, Elrond was warning Gil-galad that orcs are coming to attack too, but we don't get it. There's no fights in this episode at all, really. And that's pretty much all that happens with the elves, so that's where they sort of go here. And then we go back. Now we're back to the Humanoreans. Like I said, they don't feel like Numenorians. They don't feel like humans. They feel like some sort of weird generic hybrid in between, but again, terrible casting. A lot of these guys should be way taller, especially Elendil the Tall, who's 7'10", almost 8 feet, and Isildur, his son, who's 7 feet tall. They're just cast terribly. So after the eagle landing, now Ar-Pharazôn is in charge. Okay, Muriel's no longer the blind queen. She tells Elendil, just, obey him, give up your sword, we gotta make sure we're safe. I see things in the Palantir, or I saw things. Okay, whatever. None of this happens in the Silmarillion. I don't know what they're doing here. So he has to go give up his captainhood and give up his sword to Kemen, who's Ar-Pharazôn's son. He's not in the books. I have no idea what this guy's going to do. He's like a little wiener, basically. A little wiener kid. And his own daughter, Elendil, when he's going to bring his sword, his daughter, Arianne or whatever, she's like, oh, you suck, Dad, basically. You need to just obey. She's also not in the book, so whatever. Do whatever you want with these people. Who cares? So he gives up the sword, and they're all, mocking him or whatever, and, I don't know. This is supposed to be an 8-foot, frightening warrior of death, basically. I don't think this little wiener kid will be mocking him, but he does. So anyway, he gives up his sword just because he wants to make sure things are going to go well. Ar-Pharazôn is showing his son the skyline, saying, we don't get to live forever like the elves. They have something we don't, and that's not fair. That's kind of from the book. They were really jealous they didn't get to live forever, and the elves did. So whatever, Numenor kind of coming together a little bit? No. And then for the last of the humanoid, we just move into the realm of parody. There's like a very old temple, and Elendil is there with like some of the people that are there worshiping. All of a sudden, Kemen comes in with a bunch of guards, and he's like, "Oh, we're shutting the temple down. Everyone get out of here. We're going to put the aqueduct through here and just rip down the oldest temple." I don't know why. No reason. Okay, fine. So a bunch of them are like leaving, and then there's this one old guy like, "Oh, please, I want to pray for like my dead wife's soul." So that Kemen guy, Ar-Pharazôn's son, just like smashes the idol he's praying to. And Elendil the Tall gets taken and held by like two people, two just regular sized people. This is like supposed to be like an 8-foot Numenorian warrior. And he's like, at one point, one guy is holding him back. Like, no way. I feel like if they had any idea what kind of warrior this guy was supposed to be, no one would be trying to even hold him back. They'd be terrified to go in there and fight him. But they do. And then there's a whole scuffle at the temple. And then his I guess his lieutenant, Valandil or whatever, he gets annoyed at Kemen, and they get into a little fight, and then Kemen almost drowns him in the pool. Then Valandil gets the better upper hand, knocks him over, puts a sword to his throat, and Elendil the Tall's like, no, don't kill him, don't do it, don't sink to their level, we're better than that. So his lieutenant is like, okay, he drops the sword, like, all right, I'm going to stop now. And then Kemen just comes up, stabs him right in the back. Dirty pool, what? And then he gets Elendil the Tall, he's like, arrest him, we're going to blame all this on him. What? Okay, fine, whatever. And he just kind of goes. And there's only 2 or 3 of them. Like I said, again, I feel like if this was the guy from the book, the guy that led an army so frightening that Sauron's army like retreated, I feel like we would get a much different, this would play out a lot differently. And that's it. So overall, that's all that happens in this week's episode. There's no real action, no combat, no big exciting moments, no big reveals or anything. It's just, I'm going to be trying to do these weekly now because I did 4 of them at once and I don't want to do that again. This episode was an hour and 2 minutes for not very much to happen. I feel like they did not have enough to like make an episode here. We'll see. I thought it was getting better with episode 4, but this one is just brutal. I didn't like it at all. And I mean, not that I love the halflings or the wizard, but I mean, I could have used some of that this episode, And where's Arondir and the Ents and everything? At least I was enjoying that, but nah, nothing like that comes back. I think it's probably the episode I like the least of all of them. Either way, yeah, still gonna keep going with it, but didn't like this one. I would even give this one, like I said, like a 3 out of 10 on the odometer if I'm going episode by episode. Didn't like this one. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate that. Please like, share, and subscribe to the video. And remember, everyone, stay out of trouble.